Well, that certainly was a start. Father, the ones who are lying over there are Uncle Kraus, Uncle Rudolph, Auntie Kitty, Auntie Rosa, Goza-san. 5 people? No. 6. There's one more here. Don't tell me it's Kumasawa.
The body that Hideyoshi was looking down on now was hidden in the shadow of a mountain of random objects, in a blind spot to George, who stood by the entrance. So George couldn't tell whose body it was. Therefore, George cursed himself. He cursed that part of himself that imagines the worst, and is always right.
Oh, the one laying at your feet is Shannon, isn't it? Ooh, that's gotta suck. What did I fucking tell you? That there was no way that, they would have had a happy ending there. No. Because, in visual novels like this, especially murder mystery ones, nobody has a fucking happy ending. So in that case, if we were to ever be in a visual novel, we're just gonna stay boyfriend and girlfriend forever. I'm never proposing.
Lamau!
Anyway. Yeah. It's Shannon-chan.
George was completely silent. He shook slightly, his lower lip trembling. He wanted to run up to his beloved, screaming and crying. But before rashly running up to her, he mustered up all of his strength and asked his father.
Is Shannon also the same as Uncle Kraus and the others?
Hideyoshi deeply understood the meaning of those words, so he couldn't give George a quick answer. No, he thought that, to George right now, that was the only possible sincere and loving response. When George had asked whether she was the same, he had meant to ask whether her corpse was the same as the others. Since Hideyoshi hadn't denied it, it meant that the body was just as horrible.
Can I look at Shannon? No, you can't. Why? After all, I won't be able to see Shannon's face again, right? So, why can't I see her last face? Last time you met Shannon-chan was yesterday? Yes. See, when you left her, what kind of face was she showing you? It was a wonderful smile.
After receiving the ring, she was bewildered even though her heart should have been decided. Bashful, and so embarrassed to show him that face that she ran away. That expression was revived in George's mind.
I see. Then, I'm sure Shannon-chan would have also wished to leave you with that smile.
Hideyoshi looked down upon Shannon's body lying at his feet. Just like the other bodies, it was in such a horrible state that it would only make anyone want to cover their eyes. Half of the face had been smashed off, and no more than half of her expression remained.
Ew.
If that remaining half, soaked red with blood, had been wiped clean, that graceful, smiling face might have peeked out. Only half of it.
You get it?
Like a goose. Without thinking, Hideyoshi slapped his hand over his eyes. How cruel. If only all of it had been crushed, if they were going to crush it, then he might have been able to deceive George's heart for a while by saying it was just someone else wearing Shannon's clothes. Yet, they had left half of the face. What? What?
What was with that slip up?
What do you mean?
You said canon.
Sorry, my bad. Because Canon and Shannon, they have kind of run. Sorry about that.
Hmm.
No, I'm being serious. It caused the body so much humiliation that it also made... Besides, she has big banonker honkers. You really think that Canon is gonna, like, stuff pillows on his chest and be like, hello, I'm Shannon Hall?
I could have got some noise.
The cool edgelord is him? He was already nervous going into this fucking place. I'll tell you this right now. No, that's Shannon. I'll tell you this. To clear your mind, that is Shannon. Okay? I mean it. No, I'm serious. I'm spoiling it at this point, so that way, because I don't want you to be like, well, what if you throw a theory? Like, no. That's Shannon. Okay? Canon is currently alive right now. Like, here.
I know, I'm fucking with you.
Shannon, dead. Goda, dead. Rosa, dead. Rudolph, dead. Kyrie, dead. Kraus, dead. By the way, that's how kind of the damage is, by the way. If you want to know the damage... Corpse found inside the Rose Garden storehouse. It seemed that the side of her face was smashed after her. Don't worry, everyone will be revived in the Golden Land.
If that, what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
If that myth is to be believed.
I'll be seeing her again, so I'm not so lonely. He has the right to lament his ill fortune. She was chosen by the demon's roulette. That's all there is to it. We start where it all begins. Okay. Moving on. It caused the body so much humiliation. And also made it clear that this body was no one other than Shannon!
Well, then next time don't let it slip, Freud.
I'm not trying to slip anything! Canon and Shannon literally sound the same, and you know that I have dyslexia! Fuck off! How inhumane, how monstrous. See? Motherfucker, he's right there! Fuck you! There at Hideyoshi's feet, trying his best to burn the image of the remaining half of Shannon's expression into his eyes, was Canon. Canon was not crying. Tears had risen to his eyes, but they did not drip down. But that didn't mean that he wasn't feeling as much sadness as everyone else. Did you finish Umineko? Yes, I have. Shut up. No fucking spoilers. Shut up! Losing Shannon, who had lived with him in the gospel house, whom he had loved as a sister, must have been just the same as losing a blood relative.
George, I'm sure Shannon-chan would be grateful. She wouldn't want you to see her like this. I'm sure she'd be thanking you for staying strong. I understand. I understand, Father. I understand.
George leaned against the outside wall of the storehouse, sinking down powerlessly.
Father, I have a request. What is it? Should have looked for me. On Shannon's finger. Is there a ring? Ring? Let me see.
Hideyoshi crouched down. As he did, Canon silently pointed to one of Shannon's hands.
Yeah, there is. It's a diamond ring. Not a chip diamond. Must have been pretty expensive. And which hand? Which finger is it on? The ring finger of her left hand. See. So Shannon-chan was engaged.
George, you couldn't have...
Ava, right now that doesn't matter. A man made a lifelong promise to Shannon-chan. A man promised her happiness for life. Doesn't matter who it was. Being told that by a man, it's a woman's dream, isn't it? I don't know when she received the ring. I also don't know who gave it to her. But, even so, Shannon-chan took this ring. And he accepted it. Put it on her left ring finger. I'm sure the man who gave it to her was happy too.
To most of the people here, Hideyoshi was simply disturbed by this extraordinary situation and was blurting out strange things. But to those who really knew the truth about George and Shannon's relationship, everything he said made sense.
I see. Thank you, Father.
George stood up. The traces of tears still streaked his face, and his expression had returned to its usual calm.
Let's go. Badukun, Jessica-chan. If we stay here any longer, we'll get in the way of the adult.
Jessica sniffled once, and trying to say that she was alright, she showed her face to her mother, who had been holding her the whole time. When she faced George again, she once again had on her usual face, although she still couldn't recover her smile. Battler? Don't lose heart. Battler kept on crouching in front of his parents' bodies.
Sorry. It took this much crying to calm me down. Bastard, Dad. Bet you're laughing at me. Always talking shit about you. And crying like a baby just 'cause you died. Not my fault. It's wired in our genes to cry when our parents die.
Battler's face was still bright red from the tears, but even though it was forced, he at least recovered enough to fake a smile. Kanon, you mustn't remain here any longer either. Take the children and return to the mansion. Natsuhi, unable to take a step into the storehouse, had been standing under the rain the whole time. Maybe she had her own way of grieving, different from Battle's. She realized that she had to take on a sense of responsibility now that her husband was dead. So she gave Kanon those orders. Yes, madam. Kanon rose silently and turned to face them. His face was pure white, almost as though his own heart had died along with Shannon. There was no life in his expression. If, during the course of a normal day, he had been instructed to do a tour of a beautiful rose garden, Kanon may have led the way for them. But now, there was no distinction between Kanon and the children. They were now just kids about the same age, with wounds of having lost someone close to them. After seeing the children go back, Natsuhi gave orders to Genji. Genji, contact the police immediately. They probably won't be able to come until the typhoon passes, but they should be able to tell us what to do next.
Understood. There's an emergency radio, so I will use that to contact.
And she heard that Natsuhi remembered. That's right. The telephones were out today, weren't they? However, since it had been assumed that there could be trouble with phones on this isolated island, a radio had been installed. Anyway, let's contact the police and seek their instructions. Everything else could wait. Dr. Nanjo, is there anything further you can do here?
Unfortunately, I cannot do anything.
Understood. Genji, could you at least cover their faces or something? Exposing them that this is humiliating to them as well.
Yes.
Genji picked up several towels hanging inside the storehouse, when Ava stopped him in a shrill voice. Wait a second! Stop! This is the scene of a crime, isn't it? We can't disturb it. In our confusion, we've tracked muddy footprints all over the scene, and I'm sure it will have caused trouble. I'm sure that it will have caused trouble for the police's investigation. Natsuhi glared at Eva testily. Objectively speaking, Eva was right. Even so, she glared at Eva as though accusing her of refusing to do those tragic corpses, which had been humiliated even after death, the simple kindness of covering their faces. However, Eva had spoken both calmly and correctly. This horrible state was definitely not an accident. It was a crime. someone had killed them. This was a murder case. In that case, they should be careful not to further disturb the site. They had to aid the police as much as possible, so that they might hand over a clue that could be used to find the detestable culprit.
I agree with Eva-san.
Until the police come, we should let everything be.
What do you say, madam?
You're right. Understood. Close it up. And just in case, we should put a different lock on it.
A different lock?
Yes. When we came here, the shutter was locked. That means the culprit used the key to the shutter to lock it.
That makes sense. Then, does that mean the key which opens the shutter will have the killer's fingerprints?
I'm sure it would be worthwhile to submit it to the police as evidence. But Kanan couldn't handled it just as normal and used it to open this. It will probably also have his fingerprints on it. Also, that key was handed to Genji just now, and he took it with his bare hands. It doesn't look like it would be very useful as evidence.
That was careless of me. My apologies.
Genji-san, are there other keys to the storehouse?
No. Only this one.
Which means the killer walked out of the servant room with that key, and then conscientiously returned the key where they found it, right? Hideyoshi's theory sounded plausible, but was actually very strange if you thought about it. Why would they go to all the trouble of returning a key they stole? No, if you think about it even more deeply, there are some even more bizarre points. Usually, when a criminal hides a body, they're trying to delay the point at which it will be found and use that time to escape. The actual place where the 6 were killed wasn't necessarily here, but they had been killed somewhere on this island. And it would be normal to think that the reason they had been carried to this storehouse was to hide the bodies and delay the discovery of the crime. But that graffiti drawn on the shutter that looked like an eerie magic circle had eloquently indicated that the corpses were hidden here. It didn't specifically say that they were here, but after 6 people had gone missing, by making such an obvious scribble and even returning the key to open it, it seemed almost as though someone had wanted the corpses to be discovered here. In any case, a lock that the killer has opened once before will not be sufficiently trustworthy on its own. If we want to protect this place from the killer's hand, I think we should put a new lock on it.
I think that is a good plan. I agree.
Genji fished around the inside of the storehouse and unsealed a brand new padlock which had been inside a small box.
What would you have me do with the key?
I will take it. I will take responsibility and hand it over to the police. Natsuhi took the key from the padlock from Genji's hand. After that, they all exited and lowered the shutter. Because of that, the corpses were once again sealed behind that shutter, covered with that gruesome magic circle. Genji crouched down in front of the shutter to fasten the new padlock. In addition to the main lock on the shutter, there was sometimes a place where you can attach your own lock in the front of it. This was one of those types. In the midst of the roar of thunder and the pouring rain, the storehouse stood there, ominously. On its closed shutter was the magic circle, drawn in a creepy blood-like substance and swallowing up the bodies of 6 whole people. To Natsuhi, putting the new lock on may not have been entirely to preserve the scene for the police, but rather, she might have felt like she wanted to shut that mouth for all eternity, to prevent any more victims from being swallowed by that eerie demon. Come on, let's go, everyone. Dr. Nanjo, thank you very much for your work. Genji, quickly, contact the police.
I will contact them as soon as I return.
The adults left the storehouse. The ghastly magic circle drawn on the shutter, still swallowing the 6 bodies, loomed eerily, occasionally lit up by the lightning. Dang, I keep breaking my god goddamn screen. My goodness gracious, Mrs. Anna.
All that could be heard was the sound of the rain, the voices from the kids' television program that Maria was watching, and the engrossed Maria's cackling voice. In other words, what greeted them as they returned dumbfounded from that horrible, bizarre scene was the voice of Maria as she rolled around laughing at the television. Not knowing how to explain to Maria that her mother, Rosa, was dead, those who returned to the room couldn't manage any more than a suffocating silence.
Hey, so, do you know what an orphan means? This episode is brought to you by the letter O.
Oh my god.
For oh no, you're an orphan.
Oh my god. At first, Maria returned their stares with a dubious look. But then she realized, when she realized that they weren't trying to blame her for anything, she ignored them and again immersed herself into the television program. The children wordlessly sat down on the sofa. I'm gonna insult Maria. What's she gonna do? Tell her parents! What the fuck?
Remember, kids, if you're angry, punch an orphan. What are they gonna do? Tell their parents?
Oh my god. Their minds were probably blank from their state of shock. We're supposed to be taking this seriously, and here we are, making orphan jokes. Though they all had cried and mourned so much, now they just vaguely sat there, their faces expressionless. Only Canon had returned to his usual calm expression.
Oh, he had the same idea.
Yeah. However, that probably didn't mean he had been able to wipe out the shock. Nothing was reflected in his eyes as he stared into the emptiness. Hideyoshi, fidgeting as he remembered that horrible scene, kept muttering. Unbelievable. That can't be something of this world. It's the work of the devil! Even every once in a while, he turned these into questions and bounced them off of Nanjo. But Nanjo, in a calm, doctorly manner, kept repeating that nothing could be understood by only glancing at the scene. And until the police arrived, he wouldn't know anything. Is making this funny Schadenfreude. Wow! However, Nanjo only appeared calm by comparison to Hideyoshi, who could not contain his agitation and fear. In fact, Nanjo had also received a huge shock, and his face was deathly pale. Maybe it was because of their attitudes that Natsuhi tried to rise to the challenge and take control. Natsuhi was apparently unchanged from her normal attitude, and she briskly gave directions. I will head to where father is. Genji, quickly contact the police. Certainly. I wonder if you would allow me to tag along Natsuhi-san?
Shut the fuck up.
Since Kraus-Ni-san is now gone, the task of aiding father has been left to me. It would be improper of me to relax here while relying entirely on you. Natsuhi was struck speechless by Ava's aggressive actions in a situation like this. It seemed that she was claiming that, with Kraus dead, the one to take responsibility should not be his wife, but herself, the next highly ranked in the family. Possibly, she was not happy that Natsuhi was ignoring her and handling matters herself in this extreme situation. Of course, even Ava's mind had been a blank from the shock until just now. She only returned to herself after Natsuhi started giving orders. You may do as you please. Natsuhi walked out without saying anything more. Eva followed behind her. Mere moments after they left, Kumasawa ran into the parlor. Since she wasn't the kind of person to run around, it would be normal to sense that something had happened. But since everyone had been stricken by that early shock, none of them took any notice of this trivial difference.
Alright, fess up, you old bitch. I know it was you.
It was you the entire time. It was you who poisoned the goddamn mackerel!
Madam. If you're looking for Natsuhi-san, she went to see father. She'll probably be back soon. What happened, Kumasawa-san? That is, in the dining hall. Blood. Blood.
Everyone in the parlor turned to listen. Everyone thought the same thing. I hope I misheard that. Just like how any container has a limit of how much you can put in, no one felt like they could accept any more tragedies beyond what had already happened. So they all thought it.
Sorry, it's like right when you said, there's no way there could be more tragedies. Millennials have entered the chat.
Hey, baby! Oh my goodness, the baby! I have the baby on my feeties.
But what? In the dining hall?
When I went to the dining hall to set up breakfast, the first who started running was George. His harsh footsteps jogged Hideyoshi and Nanjo to their senses, and they chased after him. Battler and the others followed. They flew into the dining hall one after the other, but they didn't find any change that would have caused Kumasawa to go pale. To those who had viewed that gruesome scene in the storehouse, it was a bit of an anticlimax. However, Kumasawa, who had followed them, pointed it out. There really were some traces of blood on the floor.
Too bad this wasn't the ballroom, or there'd be blood on the dance floor.
Yeah. Compared to that terrible scene, it was not very dramatic. However, if you calmly thought about it, this definitely indicated a loss of a lot of blood.
There's a puddle of blood here as well. What in the world?
It appears a great deal of time has passed. It's probably safe to say that they were killed here last night.
It would seem to mean that. We've been talking together in the dining hall until late into the night. After that, someone must have broken in. Father, when should you two let yourselves out of the meeting and go to sleep? It was a little past midnight. So, sometime after that is probably when it happened.
Christ! I can't take this!
Milady, stay strong.
Milady? After seeing that hell on earth in the storehouse, I think I can handle this one.
Really? Great for you. I feel like my head's gonna freaking explode. This is a dining hall, you know? This is where every day I would eat, complain about school, complain about homework, talk to Dad about my grades. That's what this place is to me.
Not anymore!
Milady, it wouldn't be good to remain here any longer. Let's return to the parlor.
I agree. Uncle Hideyoshi, I think this room will really be important to the police. Don't you think it'd be bad if we trampled all over it?
Battler proposed this in a slightly powerful voice as, together with Cannon, he grabbed up the pail and shaking Jessica's shoulders. Everything is as Battler's son said. There's nothing more to be gained from remaining in this room. Nanjo spoke while looking at the pale faces all around. Even though that horrible scene in the storehouse had felt like something not of this world, at least it was in a place far from here. A place we had been able to cut ourselves off and run away from, which had helped everyone keep on going. However, this dining hall was different. It was in the mansion's main wing. And as Jessica had said, it was supposed to be one of the more relaxing places within the mansion. It was the same place where all the relatives had enjoyed lunch and dinner yesterday. The shock of seeing this place smeared with blood reminded us of that horrible spectacle in the storehouse, and forced us to accept that we really hadn't been able to run away from the scene of the tragedy.
Yeah. I agree too. I agree too. The killer might have left traces in this room. Amateurs like us shouldn't stir the place up and keep this.
Aww.
Let's leave quick. Come on.
Is she just tickling your foot?
Fifi,
What are you doing? Daddy does not need a buff. Daddy does not need a buff. You're too cute. Daddy does not need a buff.
This dining room needs a bath, but like that. Hideyoshi also understood the meaning of what Battler had said and pushed everyone to hurry out of the dining hall. The way we were then, looking at that blood any longer would have been too harsh. Nobody went against his words. Everyone raced each other out of the dining hall. Almost as though the last person in the room would be trapped in there, all alone. Once in the hallway, we lent a shoulder to Kumasawa, who was leaning against the wall still trembling, and we all headed back to the parlor together. Then, Genji returned. Oh, Genji-san. Were you able to contact the police? I can only offer my sincerest apologies. Whether it was failure of the radio, or something else that caused it, I cannot tell, but...
What? You can't reach the police? You tried the phone and the radio and both failed?
My apologies. The boat will be arriving on Monday morning, and I believe we will be able to borrow the communications equipment.
Isn't there a boat on this island? Can't we just take a little trip out to the Nijima Police Department?
Hideyoshi-san, that would be impossible in this weather.
Like hell it is.
And at the very least, we can't do anything until the typhoon has passed by us. Kraus-sama's boat is being repaired and is not on the island. Therefore, I am afraid we have no option but to wait for Monday's boat.
How could this happen? 6 people are dead. The phones and radio aren't working, and there's no boat. So until the typhoon passes and the boat comes, until tomorrow morning, we just have to stay here on this island unable to even contact the police? Which means that not just us, but the criminal who killed everyone is also confined to this island. That certainly follows. The culprit who killed everyone is still here on this island. And Bowser's like, I just said that!
Right? So the bastard who killed Dad and the others can't get off the island? He's still hiding somewhere? Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it!
What?
I immediately reminded of Robot Chicken. I don't know if you remember, it was like one of the earlier episodes with those aliens that replaced Michael Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the fake one exploded, they're like, damn it, damn it, damn it!
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, I got chocolate in my mouth.
Years of planning ruined!
It's possible, like, everyone is a suspect? Maybe. Wait, what? Not right now, but thank you. When my food gets here, yes.
I'll find you, you bastard! You think I'll hand you over to the police? I'll tear you to shreds myself!
Oh, hi, Maria-chan. You want to join in the conversation? Oh, by the way, can you spell orphan? Maria had finally realized that something was odd in the parlor. Or rather, than noticing something odd, it was probably better to say that she felt unhappy and neglected since everyone was getting so excited about something only she didn't know about.
Jessica-chan? Did someone die?
Damn, you're quick.
The way she spoke was completely calm. Just as though she was talking about characters in a TV drama, as though it didn't affect her at all. Jessica probably didn't. As though trying to say, can't you tell just by looking at me overwhelmed with grief, she flared up against Maria.
Of course.
They all died! Everyone! Everyone! My dad, Battler's mother and father, Goda-san and Shannon, and even your mother too!
Stop it, Jessica-chan. You aren't the only one who's sad.
Maria-san, I know this will come as a shock, but please listen.
Your mom's fucking dead. Your mom's fucking dead.
Oh, fuck that bitch. Your mother has died.
Mama is dead?
Yes, someone killed her. I know it's sad, but stay strong.
How many people died?
Oh, I know where this is going.
6 people! 6! Shit! 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 How could you do something so cruel? There's a limit to how cruel you can be if you're a human. I don't know who it is, but the killer is not human. There's no way their blood is red. killers, not human.
Probably a witch.
Just the chosen by the
Huh? Hey, Maria. Did you say something just now?
Sorry. Maria had just said something. But since the words were so remotely separated from the flow and context of this conversation, for a second, I couldn't understand them.
See, the narration, like, confuses me sometimes because it sounds like it's being read, like, being spoken from Balor's perspective,
Yeah.
and then it just feels like a narrator's perspective.
Yeah, it's meant to be that way.
Okay.
There is a purpose as to why.
Hmm?
When I was about to ask her to repeat it, I was shocked by the sudden amount of Aunt Natsuhi's loud voice coming from the entrance to the parlor.
What?
It looked like Aunt Natsuhi and Auntie Eva had returned from their trip to see grandfather. You can't contact them with the radio! If we can't use it at a time like this, why do we even have an emergency radio? My apologies. I believe it was having annual maintenance inspections, but...
How convenient.
Wait, what about one of those boat signaling devices that you can flicker the light on and off? Could you use something like that to contact the next island?
Or, a signal flare?
We do not have such equipment. My apologies. Just then, Kumasawa came pushing a serving cart loaded with breakfast. Since there was no way we'd be able to eat in the dining hall, Hideyoshi had ordered her to bring it to the parlor. Why are we eating breakfast here?
I don't know why I did that, but it's okay. Natsuhi's saying, I'll tell you later. More importantly, Ava, how was father?
Judging by the fact that he's not with you, he won't leave his room for a situation like this.
And you would think, because of that, the whole...
He isn't there!
Oh.
The room was empty!
What the? Where could he have gone at a time like this?
Did you say that the master has left his study? That's right. I'm as surprised as you. I wonder when he left his room. Do either of you have an idea? Natsuhi looked at Genji and Kanon said, as Kanon said this. As she said this. She probably thought that the servants permitted the one-winged eagle, who served directly under him, would know of a place he might go. However, it seemed to be the other way around. Their faces made it clear that those who knew Kinzo best realized even more than everyone else that how impossible it was for him to leave his room. Even we have no idea. As you all know, the master had everything set up in that study, from a place to sleep to a bathroom. I cannot imagine him leaving that room except under very exceptional circumstances.
In that case, what? Isn't it natural to think that one of those very exceptional circumstances came up?
We still don't know whether this is the case. Anyway, he is a fickle person, so it is possible he went for a walk by himself without knowing the current situation.
Either that or he probably has and I'm taking a shot in the dark here, like a hidden staircase behind a bookshelf.
If that is the case, we'll have to tell him what has happened and ask for instructions as fast as we can. That's right. Although I don't want to think about it, it's possible that something has happened to him, isn't it? I don't even want to think about something that ominous! No one had seen Kinzo since the 6 horrible corpses had been found. On top of that, the phones were broken, the radio couldn't reach anyone, and there was no way to contact the police. It looked like the typhoon would leave tomorrow, and a boat would come. But until then, no one could rely on anyone outside the island, nor could they escape the island. Everyone had lost their composure and an extremely sudden tragedy. A heavy silence and a sense of impatience. Even though they needed to do something, they couldn't think of anything. Some of them had become irritated, while others merely held their heads in their hands. But not one of them could explain what was occurring on this island of Rokanjima. After that, we sat in the parlor and wordlessly chewed through the breakfast that Kumasawa had made. Of course, this is right after something like that had happened. No one had any appetite. However, we realized that not eating would weaken our bodies. It would be also rude to Kumasawa-san, who had made the breakfast. Kumasawa-san had taken the tasteful Western vegetables, ones that Goda-san had probably special ordered for the purpose of some extravagantly fancy dish, and cooked them in a Japanese style, making them turn an unpleasant color. As to what Goda-san had been planning to cook with those ingredients, right then I couldn't even imagine it. If I did think about it, I would be reminded of the way Goda-san had died, and the inside of my mouth would be filled with sour taste. For the time being, everyone pretended to eat, but there was no home of anyone making any headway to the meal. Then, everyone was brought up to speed on the current situation. First off, that Uncle Kraus, my dad, Hirie-san, Auntie Rosa, Goda-san, and Shannon-chan had been found in the Rose Garden storehouse as cruelly mutilated corpses. And that despite that, we were unable to use phones or radio, and still couldn't contact the police. So until the typhoon passed, there was nothing we could do. Furthermore, grandfather, who we had hoped might be able to show a little leadership in this kind of situation, had disappeared at some point. Goda-san hadn't made breakfast, so grandfather's stomach must have been empty. And if he had just been taking a casual walk, by now he should have been stomping back to whine about how hungry he was. And yet, he hadn't appeared. There was more than a small chance that he had become caught up with an earlier crime. Aunt Natsuhi and Auntie Ava had said that, on their return trip from going to see Kinzo, they had called out to him on every floor looking for him, but were not able to find him. If you think about the timing of it all, it was probably best to think that he had been caught up in the crime. If the culprit had taken the trouble to move the bodies of Dad and the rest, who we figured had been killed in the dining hall, all the way to the storehouse, then maybe they had already killed Grandfather, moved his body to some strange location, and we simply had not found it yet. No one actually said it, but this theory seemed extremely convincing. We will go check all of the windows and doors are closed. We must also carefully search for Father. Children, make sure you do not leave this room. Eva-san and Hideyoshi-san, I'm sorry, but please stay here with the children. Dr. Nanjo as well. I understand. I will wait here. Aunt Natsuhi led the servants, Genji, Kumasawa-san, and Kanon-kun out of the parlor. All that was left was Auntie Eva, Uncle Hideyoshi, Dr. Nanjo, and the 4 of us children, for a total of 7 people.
Let's all stay together and maybe Let's all stay together and maybe watch some TV while we wait. Jeez, Sunday daytime TV sure doesn't have many good shows on, huh?
Uncle Hideyoshi tried to stir up his gloomy atmosphere, acting cheerfully.
Good show! Watch it!
Oh, really? You want to watch TV, Maria-chan? Then come and watch it with your uncle.
Maria was the only one who played along. Even though Maria had been told of her mother's death, she didn't show the slightest flicker in her emotions. Was 9 really this young in age? No one else was feeling the slightest bit of like joining in, and they each sank into their sofas and let their minds go blank.
Aniki, can I ask you something? What is it? Just now in the storehouse, you said something about Shannon-chan in a ring. Did you give that to her?
George Aniki didn't answer, but he hung his head and closed both of his eyes. There could be no clearer response.
Wit it, Battler! Have some tact!
You're right. I shouldn't have asked that. That's right. It was me. Last night, I proposed to her. And that was when I gave her the ring. I told her that tomorrow, she should put it on whatever finger she wanted as her aunt. I must have sounded so full of myself.
And that ring had been on the ring finger of Shannon-chan's left hand.
Actually, I've been having talks with Shannon for several years. About you, George Nissan.
I wonder what she could have said.
Shannon-chan was really bad at lying. It was instantly obvious that it was you she was talking about. She asked whether it would be okay if she got close to you. being just a servant. She asked about stuff like what kind of things do boys like, and what kind of clothes she should wear to make them happy. Lots of stuff like that. How should I say it? Well, I was jealous of her.
All that. And right after she's handed the engagement ring, it's just all over?
I know people value things differently, but being proposed to by a man is, in a way, the high point of a girl's life. So I'm sure. Last night I think Shannon was happy from the bottom of her heart. No, the happiest she'd ever been since she was born.
George Anarchy, without raising his head, sighed deeply. Or maybe tears had risen into his eyes.
It seems that Shannon was on duty in the guest house last night. But because she was too embarrassed to go back to the guest house with me, she went over to the mansion.
Think about Shannon's feelings. When you receive an engagement ring, no matter how much you've prepared for it beforehand, it's normal to feel so elated your mind goes blank. She must have been so embarrassed she didn't know what to do with herself.
And then Shannon, even though she hadn't been on duty there, she went to the mansion and got caught up in all this. If only I had it.
Martha! Love you, thank you so much for the raid! Martha raid, Martha raid, Martha raid! Love you, Martha!
On that day.
Oh, also, Martha's raid. We're playing Umineko, if you know the story. Shush. Yeah, don't spoil the game if you know it. Here are your trigger warnings. We have just found, this is a murder mystery. Full disclosure, we found 6 bodies of 18 people. Like, of the 18 people, 6 are dead. So, that's where we are now. Okay, great.
Did I start over?
If you want.
It's almost there.
Okay.
If only I hadn't, on that day, in that place, given her that ring, Shannon wouldn't have, Saya wouldn't have been caught up in this incident. Aniki, it's not like that. It's definitely not like that. I don't cry anymore.
And Bryan. Yeah, it's Bryan.
Hi, Martha.
Bad looking. Leave him be. After those words from Auntie Ava, I stopped talking to him. Bryan's gonna go get our food, so I'll take over as sole narrator! Misplaced words of comfort might actually hurt him. Jessica sat down next to Aniki and quietly put an arm around him. Maybe only Jessica, who had known about Aniki and Shannon's love since the beginning, and who had been discussing that relationship with Shannon, could comfort Aniki now. I went over to Auntie Ava and sat down on the opposite sofa. Badalakur, you really are strong. Looks like you've kept a good hold of yourself. Well, look, the depth of the love becomes the depth of the wound, right? That old bastard. I couldn't care less no matter how he snuffed it. I actually feel bad about Kirie-san, but well, she wasn't actually my parent. My! But on the other hand, you were crying a lot back then, right? Well, I did think that at least that much crying was due to the gratitude of the parent who raised me. The way you can switch your mood quickly like that in your dry tone must have come from Rudolph. That kid would always get violently happy, sad, and angry, but he would always regain his cool immediately afterward. It's nothing like that. I haven't really been able to get over the shock of it yet either. I think it's just that the emotions that rose up in me were different from everyone else's. What do you mean? I was acting much calmer than George, Aniki, and Jessica were. that wasn't because my sadness was less intense and I'd already sprung back to normal. It was because my sadness had been gradually replaced by a different emotion. Rather than sadness, it's more like I'm irritated. What bastard did this, and where the hell is he? I feel like I can't settle down until I've smacked him upside the face. That was what I really wanted to do. It was like I couldn't allow myself to just sit here, overwhelmed with sadness and hugging my knees. Since the time Dad and everyone else was killed, this island has remained covered by the typhoon. In short, that means that the asshole who pulled this disgusting, detestable bullshit is somewhere on this island.
It certainly does. I wonder if they're hiding themselves somewhere in that dark forest even now.
I felt like I had had a very similar conversation with Kirie-san the night before. That's right. After the letter from the person who claimed to be a Beatrice appeared on the dinner table last night. We had talked about whether or not a 19th person actually exists. Auntie Eva, these murders, do you think they have anything to do with the letter from Beatrice last night?
Ah, that thing? Well, I wonder. Although all of us siblings were in agreement that the mysterious letter would have been sent to further complicate the problem of father's inheritance, as to whether that and the incident this morning are related is impossible to tell at this stage.
Was that letter really given to Maria by some witch called Beatrice?
How could it be? All of it was a farce devised by father, wasn't it? He made someone like Shannon-chan wear the dress from the portrait and deceive Maria-chan, right? Isn't that just like the kind of intricate prank father would pull?
Last night, I talked with Kirie-san about whether Beatrice actually exists. And she also said that Beatrice was probably one of the 18 of us.
Isn't that obvious? There's no one else on this island besides us! So obviously it must have been someone amongst us pretending to be Beatrice.
There's no one else but us on this island.
Obviously, right? Who else could be here? No one is on this island except us. There's only 18 people. So the one who pretended to be Beatrice has to be one of those 18.
Well, there could be a 19th person.
Maybe.
And I have a feeling who it might be.
Who?
John Cena!
Kirie-san denied that there is a 19th person by flipping over the chessboard. Even though Auntie Eva hadn't constructed an argument that complicated, her opinion, at least, was the same. Except, if that is the case, our situation starts to look very ugly. At the time of Beatrice's letter, we were able to dismiss the matter as just someone's prank. However, if we deny the existence of a 19th person at this point, matters are not so jovial. In other words,
if there is no 19th person, then the culprit who killed Dad and the others is also one of the 18, right? In other words, that would mean that someone in this very mansion is the one who killed them.
And Auntie Eva smiled meaningfully. It looked like Auntie thought that this conclusion would have been obvious from the very beginning.
The culprit carried the bodies of those 6 into the storehouse. But they sure did a good job of getting it into that storehouse, didn't they? That shutter was always kept closed and locked, I'm told. In other words, in order to carry them into the storehouse, the culprit would need to unlock the shutter. Understand?
Is there any possibility? Milkshake. Is there any possibility that the shutter was left open by mistake that day?
The servant said that it's always shut. In other words, unless they brought the keys out of the servant room, they definitely couldn't have opened the storehouse.
Is the only key the one in the store?
Genji-san said so, yes. Which means that the culprit knew where that single key was stored and took it out. Just now I saw Ken-kun return the key into the servant room. The wall was packed with keys, and I don't think that a novice would know where and to what those keys went to. The culprit was magnificently able to select the key to the storehouse from all of those. Furthermore, Even though the key didn't have a tag or anything sticking to it, they knew it was the key to the storehouse behind the rose garden. And while I'm at it, they also knew where the storehouse was. I'll say it even clearer. The culprit knew the inside of the servant room as well. Her argument was extremely plain and clear.
And pain.
And pain. I'm in Spain! I'm in Spain without the A!
You're in spin?
Oh, wait! If the bodies had been thrown somewhere in the bushes of the rose garden, no explanation would have been necessary. However, the one key to the storehouse was in the servant room, and stored with a large group of other keys such that a novice would not be able to tell them apart. This meant that the culprit was someone who was used to going in and out of the servant room, and knew where the key was. The family didn't normally go to the servant room, which meant that...
Which means that one of the servants is the culprit.
I'm sorry, but even your auntie can't say any more than that. However, I'll tell you one thing.
What's that?
The culprit. We should probably say they were culprits in the plural. And what's more, they were well armed. You see it now, don't you? They had to assault the 4 in the dining hall and kill them all at once, drag a total of 6 bodies all the way to the storehouse beyond the rose garden, and scribble that disgusting makeup on their faces. There's no way that a single culprit could carry all of this out on their own, right? It was impossible. It might not have been a single person if spent enough time on it, but that would have taken ages.
No, I think there's probably one way they could have done it.
Gremlins! It's probably best to think that a significant number of people had been part of it.
Ooh. So what you mean is, maybe all of the servants were in cahoots?
Please keep it quiet, okay? It's bad to speak of speculation alone. Besides, what would you do if it was really true? They might not let us return alive. This is an opponent who's had no trouble killing Nissan and 3 others. The only people in this room right now who look like they could put up a decent fight are the 3 people in my family, and maybe you as well. 4 at most. The situation is no different than it was last night. In short, it would be easy for the culprit to massacre the rest of us. I've been playing detective with Auntie Ava out of a desire to expose the person who had killed Dad and the rest before the police did. If I could manage to skillfully penetrate the culprit's identity, I want to stick the evidence in their face. I had gotten it into my head that if I did that, the culprit would give up and surrender, just like in one of those detective movies. However, the culprit only surrenders there because they're in a situation where resisting would be futile. The culprits behind these incidents on the island were far from helpless, and might even be able to massacre all the remaining people on the island. And on top of that, this island was like a giant locked room, cut off from the rest of the outside world by the typhoon. So they had a full day until tomorrow to kill, scheme, and cover up their handiwork. In short, we weren't in the kind of safe atmosphere where we can entertain ourselves by playing detective. On the contrary, we were at the stage where we had to be scared stiff, since playing detective might displease the culprits and cause them to repeat another mass murder. Well, it's just a possibility, right? But I can't bring myself to trust the servants yet. And that doesn't mean they're the only ones I suspect. I also think there might be some mastermind behind all this.
God damn it, Juko. How many times have we got to tell you fuck off?
It's me, motherfuckers! Juko Inishima!
A mastermind? Why do you say that?
Hey, this isn't Danganronpa. Why the fuck are you calling for Junko's name here? This isn't Danganronpa. Why the fuck am I here? God damn it. Every time you mention Danganronpa, my ass has gotta get some here. What the fuck?
It's a mastermind. Of course, that's the first thing that comes in my mind.
Well, that's not my fucking problem, is it?
Yeah,
Bye.
it is.
Yeah, fuck you. Bye.
And fuck you too.
It's just a feeling. Think about what the word servant literally means. It means they serve someone. They do someone's bidding, right? Everyone who was killed had some relation to the Ushinomiya family. so it would be natural for someone with interest in that result to be involved.
It was also plain and clear. The Yoshinomiya family were currently right in the middle of discussing how to distribute the inheritance if grandfather died. If this followed the formulaic plots used to death by many classic mystery novels, it would definitely be a crime by someone with ties to the Ushinomiya family and who was entangled in the inheritance problem. Auntie probably had also read a few books in that genre. Her theory did have a few one-sided conclusions to it, but it was a run-of-the-mill idea that anyone would surely hit upon. I think anyone who would have suspected the servants, even if their logic was different. Especially the talk revolving around the key to the shutter, it was enough to make it easy to suspect strongly that one of the servants was involved in the case.
Which is why I don't like it for some reason.
What do you mean you don't like it?
Just talking to myself. Hee.
I dodged the question by joking, but I couldn't wipe the sense of unease I felt inside me. Because the reasoning we had arrived at was altogether too simple. Reasoning that anyone could arrive at. And I just couldn't accept that. And if I tried flipping over the chessboard, like I had learned from Kirie-san, that was exactly why it was impossible for the servants to be the culprits. If the servants really had been the culprits, they wouldn't have hidden the bodies in a place that was tied to themselves. Certainly not the Rose Garden storehouse of all places, whose key they themselves controlled. The police would probably immediately pursue whoever had been in control of the key. They would create a danger for exposure. If we were to assume that they were the culprits, they had no reason to carry the bodies into the storehouse. Did they expect us to really think that? Did they expect us to think that? Did they put them in the storehouse deliberately? No, that definitely didn't make sense. When the police come and inspect the site, all kinds of things will probably become clear. No matter how deeply careful the culprits were in carrying out the murder, some traces will definitely be found. And so, in summary, they have everything to lose and nothing to gain. If you think about it this way, and look at the game from the culprit's side, it feels like there's no point in advertising the location of the corpses. If the bodies were found, a report would be sent to the police. The remaining people would become more cautious. They would start looking for who was responsible. Anyway, none of these things would make the culprits feel any more comfortable. Just like the words from the main character's mother in a novel I read recently called Higurashi no Naku Koro ni.
Now don't that sound familiar?
I don't think so. A mystery novel has 4 parts: introduction, development, turn, and conclusion. And so, to commit the perfect crime, it is essential to eliminate the introduction. Right now, no one knew where grandfather was. We didn't know whether he had already become a victim or if he was one of the culprits. But this state of confusion had to be beneficial to whoever did this. By blatantly advertising the bodies to us and declaring, hey, there's a murder case going on, the culprit had absolutely nothing to gain. Right, that was where we could flip over the chessboard. So this blatant advertisement of the bodies was itself the culprit's goal. So it may well be that to the culprit, having the 6 corpses be present here meant more than the deaths themselves. So in other words, the culprit wanted to display these murders. To who? To us. It was a message. The culprit was trying to shove something in our faces. I didn't know what that could be. At the current time, none of us could grasp anything from this vulgar mass murder except malice. Malice towards everyone, perhaps. Each one of the survivors had some kind of connection to one of the 6 who had been killed. Uncle Krause's death brought sorrow to Jessica's family. The deaths of Dad and Kirie-san brought sorrow to me. And Auntie Rose's death brought sorrow to Maria. Goda's death probably dealt a shock to his fellow servants. And Shannon-chan's death brought grief to George Aniki, who had proposed to her, and to Kenan-kun, who had loved her like an older sister. Everyone now on this island had received an equal amount of sadness. Auntie Ava had claimed that the servants were definitely in cahoots. But then, how could you explain the deaths of Goda-san and Shannon-chan? And by this argument, the grief caused by the 6 deaths hit everyone but Auntie Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi. it was very possible to doubt Auntie Ava herself, who was acting like she was outside the net of suspicion, who might have been trying to point that suspicion at the servants. In the first place, she had managed to avoid suspicion and place it on the servants with that argument about the key to the shutter. But if you looked at it from a perspective of motive, about who would gain something from the murders, Auntie Ava's name floated to the top of the list.
Yeah, she's been very suspicious this whole time. I got my eyes on you, bitch.
Madeline, Auntie knows what you're thinking, okay?
No, you don't. Huh? Hee. Oh no. Please don't tell anyone. That I had my head all full of, that kind of stuff.
I'm the one who would gain the most from these murders. Since I'm going to be suspected anyway, I might as well get it out in the open myself.
No, I was definitely thinking about ass and titties.
I tried to dodge this conversation by joking around, but it looked like it hadn't worked. The inheritance is to be divided between the siblings. But now, the 4 siblings are just me. All the assets of the Ushirimiya family will become mine.
If Uncle Hideyoshi heard you, he'd say, "Give it a rest, Ava. It's not a joke."
I'm sorry, okay? No matter how I try to smooth it over, I'll just be suspected anyway, so I was just fooling around. So I've been thinking from my point of view, this murder might have been planned to cast suspicion on me. Unfortunately, my alibi for last night is weak.
Could you tell me about it? About last night?
As you know, the discussion about how we siblings would gnaw apart the inheritance continued until late in the night, but I don't know how late it lasted. My husband and I had woken up early that morning. We were so sleepy we let ourselves out a little past midnight. We then returned to the guest house and rested there.
Can anyone other than Uncle Hideyoshi prove that? Oh, of course, it's not like I'm suspecting you or anything, you know...
My, I wonder about that. I don't know if it counts as proof, but when we returned to the guest house, we were greeted by Genji-san and asked if we needed a towel. I think that it should be enough to prove we returned to the guest house a little after midnight. Of course, if my theory was correct and the servants were all in cahoots, that wouldn't actually make for an alibi, would it?
That is a point, isn't it? Does it mean that right now I'm playing detective with the real culprit? Hehehe.
But let me say this for my honor's sake. If my goal was the inheritance, I wouldn't commit this weird kind of murder. After all, if I just wanted to make them forfeit their rights to the inheritance, the methods of their deaths wouldn't have mattered. On the contrary, I'd try to make their deaths look like an accident, wouldn't I? If I had been roping in the servants and carefully planning everything out, that's even more reason I'd do that.
You're right about that. You were killing someone to make a profit. You definitely shouldn't make it look like a murder.
You see? So from here on, your auntie will be in a very blue mood. I'll probably be treated as a person behind us by the police and harshly investigated. I can't wait. Eva shrugged with a bitter smile. Just like it was easy to think of the servants as suspicious, it was also very easy to think of Auntie Eva as suspicious. So if we flip over the chessboard, did that mean it was impossible for the culprit to be the easily doubtable Auntie Eva? However, if that logic could pass so easily, then motive wouldn't count for anything. No, that can't be right. Knowing the motive should be a big clue towards knowing the culprit. That is why murderers throughout history have tried to ensure their motive will not be found out by skillfully complicating the incidents. I don't know. Every time I flip over the chessboard, it keeps flipping from front to back and front to back. Were my thoughts closing in on the truth? Or